It might seem like I'm a little late to the party with this, and I get that. This is essentially my first impressions series, and it's been over a week since Goldlewis came out. However, when it comes to completely new characters, I want to give them a bit of time to develop and for me to get used to them before I talk about them. The reason I was able to make the fighting game glance video on Beyond Melee Bowser so soon after he came out was because it was essentially a patch of a character I was already very familiar with. Goldlewis is a whole new boy, and I'm glad I gave him some time, because when he released I wasn't a fan, but he's very quickly become my favourite character in the entire game. So let's talk about that. Unlike what I was expecting, Goldlewis is a brawler, not a grappler, having no command grab at all. I was initially disappointed by this, but I've come to absolutely adore his playstyle, having phenomenal pressure and high-low mix-ups, mainly thanks to Behemoth Typhoon, offering him multiple overheads, lows, and even launches that are mostly plus on block. And to top it all off, his damage is absolutely ludicrous. Now, I think I've made it pretty clear that I absolutely love Goldlewis, and I really do, but I don't love everything about him. There are a few small things that bug me about the character, and I'm going to talk about them now before I go back to the stuff that I absolutely love. Also, for the record, I'm not going to talk about everything this character has, just these few things that I don't care for, and then the stuff that I really love, that significantly contributes to my enjoyment of the character. There will be some tips and stuff along the way, but this is not a Goldlewis guide. If you want that, Rufalmonger has an amazing 1-hour guide to Goldlewis that I'll link in the description. It's a really excellent video that I highly recommend. The first thing about Goldlewis that I'm not a huge fan of is his 6p. Which is a shame, because it's really cool looking. It's a decent enough anti-air, and on counter hit you get a bomb setup or some extra damage with Behemoth Typhoon. However, because of the very high hitbox, Goldlewis' 6p just isn't as good as other 6ps when it comes to using the invincibility to beat certain reactable attacks. It can still work in these situations if you're fast enough, but it's kind of unideal. I understand they don't want Goldlewis to have great defense, but this just feels kinda jank in my opinion. Speaking of jank, we gotta talk about 5p. Going off the numbers, this move is quite good. It's frame 7, it's got great range, and it's +3 on block. The problem with 5p is that it whiffs on crouching opponents. And also Giovanna, even if she's standing. I'm pretty sure these two are colleagues, so I like to think he's just being polite. Now, if the only thing wrong with 5p was that it whiffed on crouch, I would have no issue at all. I'd kinda like it, because it would have a cute little dynamic with 2p. 2p is also +3 on block, but it's a frame faster and much more consistent at the cost of being stubbier. My big issue with 5p isn't that it whiffs on crouch, but that it whiffs on a ton of shit. See, the hitbox for the move is placed really high up, and that means a ton of moves go under it. I really don't like how this feels. I'd much prefer if the hitbox was expanded downwards and the move was just coded to whiff on all crouches. I'd really value the consistency, and it would make me use the move a lot more as like a counter poke or a whiff punish. Next up we have Skyfish. It looks really fucking cool, and I don't dislike the move on its own. It's how it interacts with Goldlewis' security level that I'm not a massive fan of. On its own, it's a fairly slow but decently powerful projectile that does a ton of chip damage. The big weakness of the move is the recovery time. If the opponent dashes over it, they get a big punish. Your counter hit punishable for the entire duration too, which is a bummer. Something I need to make an effort to do more often is react to when my opponent goes over Skyfish and then try and use a Roman cancel to punish their attempt to get in. But anyway, back to the security meter. The security meter is a meter above Goldlewis' tension gauge that starts at level 1, pretty quickly goes to level 2, and then slowly rises to level 3. The higher the level, the better 3 of his specials become. Thunderbird, Skyfish, and his second super, Burn It Down. Skyfish normally has really short range, but at level 3 it goes full screen. Did I say Skyfish? That's Thunderbird. That's Thunderbird. That's Thunderbird. If I caught that Skyfish, that's Thunderbird. I'm fucking stupid. As for Burn It Down, the move has 5 hits at level 1, 10 at level 2, and 3 at level 15. They also go a little bit further with each level. Thunderbird and Burn It Down are both extremely useful tools for Goldlewis, especially at higher levels. Goldlewis's neutral is not very good, but these really help him get around that issue. However, the level 1 versions of these moves are both not great. Level 1 Thunderbird is really just for setups, and level 1 Burn It Down is bad. As for Skyfish, the level 1 version does 32 damage and hits 10 times, and every level after that adds an extra 30 damage and 10 hits. As you can see, the level 1 version isn't that impressive, but what's better about it is that it actually has much less recovery. With higher levels, Skyfish doesn't objectively get better. It does more damage and chip damage, but it's got a lot more recovery. This is my big issue with Skyfish. The fact that it doesn't get that much better with higher levels, in fact getting worse in some ways, while Thunderbird and Burn It Down get significantly better with higher levels. However, if I use Skyfish, no matter what level I'm at, my security meter goes all the way back down to 0. The fact that I'm choosing to use an already niche move punishes me by lowering my security meter to 0 and crippling 2 of my most important neutral tools doesn't sit right with me. Maybe this is a nitpick, but personally I'd prefer if Skyfish was weaker overall, but completely independent of the security meter, maybe doing 15 hits. This might be something that only other Goldlewis players will get, but it bothers me nonetheless. It's with the proximity on close and far slash. See, there's so many situations where I swear I'm close enough to get a close slash, and I still get far slash. And this really bugs me, because close slash is amazing in juggles, but far slash is terrible. It knocks the opponent really far away, so not only can you not get a follow-up, but you're not next to the opponent, which Goldlewis does not like. Other Goldlewis players, any idea what's happening here? Is it just me missing something? Am I just confused because of Goldlewis's big frame? I don't know, but it does bug me. So those are the few things I don't like, and now we're back to gushing. Now that might take up a bit of a chunk of the video, but I do want to clarify, that's everything I don't like. There's a lot of stuff I really like about Goldlewis that I'm not going to mention. I'm just going to talk about the stuff that I love. And keep in mind again, I really love this stuff. The problems I had with Goldlewis are just, you know, nitpicks or small things that kinda bug me. First and foremost, Behemoth Typhoon is the coolest fucking move ever. It's essentially 8 different special moves. I genuinely cannot get over how cool this is to me. They all require a different half circle input, and you can do all 8 of them in the air, although they don't guard crush like they do on the ground. Now, before I briefly talk about all 8 versions of the move individually, something I find really cute is that technically, all 8 versions are active on frame 12, even though you wouldn't really notice it. For example, the 2 that hit in front of you obviously hit on frame 12, because they start in front of you. However, take a look at back down forward. This hits in front of Goldlewis on frame 26, but technically, it is active on frame 12, which is pretty neat. First up, we have forward down back. On paper, this move is phenomenal, and I'd know it because I used to spam this shit all the time. It's frame 12, only -5 on block, and it combos from pretty much everything you have. However, the problem with this move isn't that it's bad, but that it's outclassed by forward up back. Forward up back is also frame 12, also only -5 on block, also combos from pretty much everything you have, but it gives you significantly better Oki, which is really, really important for Goldlewis. Back down forward is the big fat fucking launcher. It hits in front of you on frame 26 and it's +12 on block. If you're around corner to mid-screen, then you don't really get anything without a Roman cancel. Okay, you can probably get a little more than that, but I just think that combo really looks cool. I like getting the alien involved. Near the corner though, things are a bit different. in the same way that stubbing your toe is different from getting hit by a fucking train. Your combos into it on the ground are a little bit limited, but you do have some options, like 2H and counter hit 5H. Counter hit 5H is very practical because it's an amazing frame trap tool after close slash and fast slash. Goldlewis has two Behemoth Typhoons that you primarily use as overheads. The first is the big one, back up forward. This one's pretty slow, being frame 28 or 29 depending on the character, but it is plus 14 or 15 on block, which is kind of crazy. It also gives you a very versatile launch. Goldlewis's other overhead is up forward down. The input's a bit awkward, and you don't get a meterless combo off it, but don't get it twisted. This move is fantastic. It's so much faster than the slow overhead, it's still plus 12 on block. Make sure to use this when you can. Don't get too reliant on the big overhead, it's gonna get really predictable. Down forward up is a launcher. I gotta be honest, I don't use this one too much. It's not a bad move, it's frame 12 and it can be anywhere from plus 3 to plus 9 on block, which is great. But it's just a little awkward to combo off, especially mid-screen. It's quite nice against air connects though. It is worth mentioning though that you get a more workable launch on counter hit. Lastly, we have the two Behemoth Typhoons that hit low. This is down back up. This one gives you a side switch, and admittedly I don't use it as much as I should. I mainly use it in the middle of juggles to extend damage, but this one's actually pretty good. You can even get a combo after it, which I didn't know till very recently. Even outside of that though, this move is great. It's a frame 12 plus 3 on block low, so it's hard to be mad at. Makes up for the stubby range in my opinion. Last up, we have up, back, down. This is another low, and this one's incredible, even though, again, it's a bit stubby. It's plus 16 on block. On top of that, it's also a launcher. You get some small combos mid-screen. Well, small for Goldlewis. And then in the corner, you get some really nasty stuff. What you just saw there was one of the nastiest mix-ups I've ever seen. That sure looked like an overhead, right? Well, no, it actually hit low. If you input the move during the landing animation of a cross-up heavy slash, then that comes out. Goldlewis doesn't turn around, so you get the low version. If you delay it slightly, you get an overhead that looks almost the exact same. Disgusting. Okay, so I probably just talked about Behemoth Typhoon for a billion years, and it probably sounded very guidey, which is the last thing I want this video to be, but I don't fucking care. This move is just, I love it. It's so fucking cool. Yeah, I know some of the inputs are awkward, like you can't do all 8 of them standing. Well, technically you can, but you'd have to be a fucking 720 wizard. But I don't care. This move is so fucking fun. I cannot stress how much I love this. It is my favorite thing about the character. It's so versatile. It is the coolest thing in the game. I don't care. I love it. Thank you, Goldlewis. You're great. So, now that we're done with Behemoth Typhoon, let's do a little lightning round of other stuff that I love about him, even if it's not on the same level. I'm not going to talk about all his normals, because for the most part, I like all of them, except for the few that I mentioned earlier, but here are a few of my favorites. I kind of love Heavy Slash. Just looks so funny to me. He really just fucking slams the coffin. But even outside of that, this is a genuinely good move. As I showed off earlier, it's an amazing frame trap off close slash. It's also only -2 on block, which is really surprising. It doesn't look like it. The only thing that's a bit annoying is that the pushback makes it a little hard to work with sometimes. Another cool thing about 5H is that it's got 6 active frames, so it's a great meaty. That might not look that plus, but you gotta keep in mind that Goldlewis has a slower than average pre-jump, 5 frames. Also, Close slash is also a -2 on block button with 6 active frames, so it also works with that. 2S looks a little stubby, but it's actually a true disjoint. You can't hit the coffin for the most part, which is pretty cool. I know I complained about how it works in juggles earlier, but I really do like fast slash. It's a great poke, being frame 10 and only -7 on block. Even then, you can cancel it into Behemoth Typhoon to make it safer, plus, or pick up a combo. It'll always combo to the 2 Behemoth Typhoons that start with forward. The last ground normal I want to talk about is one that I've heard some mixed opinions on, but I personally really like. It's 5k. I really like this normal. It's frame 10, -7 on block, and hits low. What I really like about it though is that it retracts his low Hitbox before it hits, so it's a nice little counter poke. Also, it's jump cancelable, which leads to some shenanigans. I feel the same way about Goldlewis's jump normals as I did Potemkin. They're all amazing except for one, which I think is just whatever. For Potemkin, it was jump K, for Goldlewis, it's jump P. It's just kinda whatever. Jump K is awesome because you can cancel it into air dash, which is really fun. Gives you some really cheeky pressure. Jump slash is just a big fat air to air. Jump heavy slash is your big fat cross up button. And jump D is fucking ridiculous. As I mentioned earlier, you can chase the level 3 and to a lesser degree the level 2 Thunderbird, which massively helps with Goldlewis's neutral. This is really fun to do. I love this move. Speaking of chase, I really appreciate that Goldlewis, despite being a big body, has nearly all the mobility options that most characters have. The only one he's missing is a double jump, which I'm honestly fine with. I like that all the big bodies in this game kind of have their own unique quirks when it comes to their mobility, such as Potemkin having no air dash or forward dash, and Nargo just having his own command dashes. It's really fun, honestly. I like it a lot. The level 1 Thunderbird has very short range. But that's fine. It shines as a setup tool, not a projectile. Another nice thing about using Thunderbird for pressure is that you'll usually have the level 2 version. Remember that the security meter pretty quickly fills from level 1 to level 2. It's level 2 to level 3 that takes a while. The last gameplay thing I want to talk about is his punch super. Down with the system. This shit's pretty cool. You're probably already aware of the fact that not only can you do this super with a 360 motion, but you can do a 720 or a 1080 to make it even more powerful. Landing the 1080 version can be a bit awkward, but man is it so fucking satisfying. No matter how much damage you've done to it, what you combo into it from, or if you get the space connect, it'll always break the wall, which is very nice. Now, that's everything gameplay-wise that I really want to talk about, and there is other stuff that I like, of course, but that's everything that I really, really love about the character. But there's one more thing I want to talk about, and that's his design. Not just how it looks, like, yeah, he looks great, that's a given. But it's the fact he's a big fat character. Hear me out for a second, right? See, I feel like a lot of fat characters in fighting games are just really poor representation. They tend to get boiled down to dumb, obnoxious, loud, unhygienic characters, and it's just doesn't really sit right with me, especially with the number of them that do it. Birdie's a prime example, Boraicho would be another, and there are some, like, cooler fat characters like E-Honda and Bob from Tekken, but they kind of have their own problem going on, because, man, have they, like, no personality outside of their fighting style. In my opinion, Goldlewis doesn't have either of these issues. He's got a cool personality, and he doesn't have any kind of negative stereotype attached to him for no reason. He's just a really cool character who happens to be fat, and that's really nice to see. He's not defined by it in any way at all. I really hope that what Goldlewis does becomes more of a standard for fighting games, because diversity in fighting games is extremely important, and it's a shame when the fat character in a fighting game tends to boil down to just, they are crude and like the food, you know? I appreciate what Goldlewis brings to the table. So yeah, that's Goldlewis. I adore this character. I really do. I might have gone on a little longer than I planned to, because there's just so much I want to talk about with him. I know he's not perceived as a particularly strong character at the moment, but I think that makes sense, and there's always hope that he'll get buffed in the future. But even if he doesn't, I'll keep playing him. I enjoy him a lot, and if he stays the way he is forever, I would keep playing him. He's my favourite character in the game at the moment. And besides, it's not like Oxys have a history of making overpowered big body DLC characters. Wait, fuck, never mind, go back, go back!